Good morning and welcome to the Point. It is Monday, November 30th, 2020. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. This morning I have joining me are two ladies that are going to tell us about an initiative that is world-based. It is celebrated. Okay. Yes, Miss Pascal, I saw your message. Sorry. It is celebrated worldwide. Of course, Grenada is part of that initiative. It's about the 16 days of activism. And yesterday was the anniversary of Grenada signing the convention for the prevention, punishment, and eradication of violence against women. I have joining me is the project coordinator for the Grenada Country Program of the Spotlight Initiative, Mrs. Elaine Henry-McQueen. And we are also expected to be joined by coordinator of the Committee to End Child Sexual Abuse, Miss Jacqueline Lorice Pascal. She seems to be having a little bit of issue with the audio, but we'll hopefully get that sorted out and she can be able to participate in the conversation. So good morning, Mrs. McQueen. I'll start with you first thing off this morning then. Good morning.
Good morning, Blossom. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hope all is well with you.
It's going very well. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone who is listening and looking this morning.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the specific project that you're dealing with as it relates to the Spotlight Initiative, let's first deal with the umbrella. We are into the 16 days of activism for violence against women. No, Miss Pascal, we can't hear you as it. Yeah, so we're into the 16 days of activism. Just first briefly explain, what the 16 days are about and why it's important that we celebrate and commemorate this.
The 16 days of activism is a period of 16 days long, which starts on the 25th of November and ends on the 10th of December. The 25th of November is significant because it is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. And the 10th of December is also significant because it is Human Rights Day. So the idea of the 16 days that run between the 25th of November to the 10th of December is a period to highlight that violence against women and girls is a violation of human rights, and that the only way we can experience the full human rights of all human beings would be, one of the things would be to eliminate all forms of gender-based violence against women and girls. So that is the whole significance of the 16 days of activism.
And yesterday, like I alluded to, was the anniversary of Grenada signing on to the convention. Can you explain to us the importance of that piece of document, that legislation, that convention for not just Grenada, but women and girls around the world?
Right. So that particular convention is the Inter-American Convention on the, as you said, it's on the prevention, punishment, and eradication of violence against women. Grenada ratified that convention 20 years ago, and yesterday was the anniversary. It is an Inter-American Convention. That means it is within the OAS system, the Organization of American States, although there are countries outside of the OAS which have also ratified it. What it means is that Grenada has committed itself by signing on to that commitment, by that convention, that it will take all actions necessary to prevent violence against women, to punish violence against women, and to eradicate violence against women. And it's important that these are there because we have to look at prevention, we have to look at offender accountability, that is where the punishment comes in, holding offenders accountable, and we also have to look at eradicating it from the society as a whole, which means that there wouldn't be victims, there wouldn't be offenders, and there wouldn't be people standing by apparently tolerating it or accepting it in our society. So that is what this convention is about. And it is one of the conventions which Grenada has signed to that effect. So this one is within the Inter-American system, the OAS system. And there is actually an organization within the OAS called the Inter-American Commission for Women, CIM, and that's responsible, and there are mechanisms in there responsible for monitoring what Grenada is doing. But Grenada is also part of the um, wider global network and has also ratified CEDAW, which is the Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And that one is part of the United Nations system. CEDAW is part of the United Nations system, and Grenada also ratified that one. The anniversary for it, I think, is in August, sometime in August.
How much of an issue is violence against women and girls? Is it in Grenada? I know we've had a few instances. We hear of some, but I'm sure there are others that we don't hear about. And while I know you may not have these specific statistics, I'm going off of my memory that you are a former president of GNO, the Grenada National Organization for Women. So with your knowledge of that and your participation as the project coordinator of GCPSI, how prevalent is it in the Spice Isle?
It is prevalent in the Spice Isle, and in fact, we do have statistics. Prevalent statistics.
Nice.
Yes, we actually do, because just recently Grenada completed what is referred to as the Women's Health and Life Experience Survey. And that survey, well, it was an entire study, both a survey part and qualitative part. The study has findings that show that 29% of all women and girls have experienced some form of physical and or sexual abuse by an intimate partner in their lifetime. That's 1 in 3, 29%. So if there are 3 women in a room, 3 women who have had an intimate partner in a room, one of them would have experienced some form of physical and or sexual abuse by an intimate partner in her lifetime, whether it's a current partner or a former partner. It also shows that sexual harassment by a non-intimate partner is 27%, and that sexual violence by someone other than an intimate partner is 23% prevalence, which means that if there are 4 women in a room who have never had a partner, or whether or not they've had a partner, if there are 4 women in a room, one of them has experienced some form of sexual violence by someone who has not been an intimate partner. So it is very prevalent. It is pervasive. And that is why Grenada accepted an invitation from the United Nations to participate in a project called the Spotlight Initiative to eliminate violence against women and girls. And that project is funded by the European Union.
Before we get into the project, I have a feeling that there are men out there who are saying, well, what about us? It may not be, the figures may not be as high as women, but we sometimes are victims as well. How can we incorporate our male victim survivors, not victims, I don't like the word victims, our male survivors of sexual abuse into the entire project and programs that we have going?
The thing is, the prevalence is extremely high against women and girls, and therefore the initiatives are addressing directly women and girls. However, when the initiatives are rolling out, when the laws are being changed, when the systems are being addressed and improved, those systems and laws, etc., will be done in a way that says everyone, anyone experiencing violence against women, violence, intimate partner violence or sexual violence. It will not be, the systems or the laws have not been, and they will not be specific to women and girls. They would be sensitive to the needs of women and girls, and they would also be sensitive to the needs of men and boys. but they would encompass everyone. As a matter of fact, the entire theme of the Spotlight Initiative is Leave No One Behind.
So tell us more before I go into the thing. Miss Pascal, maybe you can exit the Zoom call and come back inside, and then we'll see if the audio can be fixed or rectified there. So just exit the call. Oh, I'm hearing you slightly.
Yes.
I'm hearing you very far, Miss Pascal.
Very far.
Yes. So maybe exit the call and then come back. I'll readmit you. All right. Yes, Mrs. McQueen, tell me about the GCPSI program that you are helping to coordinate here in Grenada.
That is the country program of the Spotlight Initiative in Grenada. That program is founded on the premise that by working together, we can eliminate violence against women and girls. And therefore, working together means involving as many partners as possible, government, civil society, and other private sector, etc. So this program is part of a global initiative. It is global in that it's taking place all over the world. It's funded by the European Union in partnership with the United Nations. And Grenada was invited to submit a country program towards this. And Grenada is the only OECS country and one of 6 in the Caribbean to be involved in this program. All right? And for Grenada, the focus is on bringing attention, coordinating human efforts, and strategically utilizing resources to accelerate progress towards reducing family violence and all forms of violence against women and girls in Grenada, in Carriacou, and in Petit Martinique. So it is a national project for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And the intention is to focus attention, coordinate human effort, and utilize resources for that purpose. The project, the program in it's in the entire program.
In its
entirety. Thank you. The entire program has 6 pillars. Those 6 pillars are policy and legislation being one. The second is institutions or strengthening institutions. The third is prevention. The fourth is services, improving the quality of services. The fifth is data collection and use. And the sixth is the women's movement and civil society, strengthening the women's movement and civil society to be equal participants, significant participants in the entire project, but also in the efforts to end violence, gender-based violence and family violence in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
Ms. Pascal, say something. Let me see if we can hear you better now.
Hello?
Still hearing you far away. Say something again. Can you hear me, Ms. Pascal? Okay, she is probably just reconnecting. So let me go back to Ms. McQueen. So Ms. McQueen, with the civil society and partners coming together for this project, what happens to the data that is collected, how you're collecting the data, and what happens when the data is collected? What's the step after that?
So there are 2 kinds of data when we're talking about almost anything, but here we're speaking about violence. There are 2 kinds of data. One is prevalence data, which is the statistics I mentioned to you earlier on. These studies and surveys take place sometimes, well, this is the first time Grenada has ever had prevalence study done, right? And in hope is that in about 10 years, there will be another one. The data in between that time is what is called administrative data. What happens on a day-to-day basis? Who collects what, when the victims and survivors report to the police or to the Ministry of Social Development or to one of the NGOs like Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic and so on. And this project, the Spotlight Initiative, has one of the plans is to develop a data system. So at this particular point, the police collects data, the ministry collects data, Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic collects data, but they're not necessarily a data system. The Ministry of Health also collects data, but we don't necessarily, Grenada doesn't necessarily have a system in place for collating the data, managing the data, and presenting the data as one for the country. That's the administrative data. That's the data based on reports. All right? And the intention of Spotlight is to create such a system so that all the data would work at some point, be fed into one space so that they could be analyzed and presented as one picture for Grenada in any given, maybe yearly or maybe quarterly. The system will evolve to describe what's going to happen.
How long has Spotlight been in operation, been running?
The program, it was launched in March of this year. It is a 3-year project, and it's intended to run from 2020 to 2022. So technically it started in January of 2020. So we're almost the end of year 1. And we have commitment from the Spotlight Secretariat from the European Union for funding up to the end of 2021. And based on progress, Grenada will be able to be approved for 2022.
Okay. Let's take a break, see if we can further help Ms. Pascal get onto the program, and then we're going to come back.
Great.
This is To The Point on Classic and GBN. We'll be right back.
From Monday, November 2nd to Thursday, December 31st, GBN's Christmas Caravan will be blazing the trail of goodness across Grenada. Join us as we journey daily to find the hottest deals this Christmas season. Win prizes from our partners. Get recipes for your favorite Christmas treats and bust a tune in the Christmas Karaoke Fun segment. It's GBN's Christmas Caravan. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Live on Classic Radio 105.5 and 105.9. GBN Television Channels 7 and 11. GBN's Facebook page and GBN's YouTube channel. Your mid-mornings will never be the same.
The Christmas Caravan is brought to you in part by Hubbard's and the Food Fair Supermarkets, Gittins Healthcare, Sissons Paint, and Bryden and Miners and Ace Hardware.
The following are a list of food items to have on hand amidst COVID-19. Perishables like vegetables, fruits, provisions, and eggs. You are advised to stock perishable items to last up to 2 weeks. Non-perishable items including dry goods like cereals, flour, cornmeal, oats, rice, pasta, nuts and nut butters like peanut butter, crackers, canned or frozen meats, ready-to-eat canned meats, powdered or canned milk, dried peas and beans, canned fruits in natural juices, 100% canned fruit juices, and canned vegetables. You can stock non-perishable food items to last up to 1 month. Store bottled or clean drinking water, 1 gallon or more per day per person. If you suffer from a medical condition, have prescribed medications on hand. A message from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council as we battle COVID-19.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Welcome back to The Point. We are speaking with two ladies as we are into the 16 days of activism against violence against women, for violence against women. We have joining us, in addition to Ms. McQueen, who we spoke to at the beginning of the program, the project coordinator of the Grenada Country Program of the Spotlight Initiative. Now joining us is the coordinator of the Committee to End Child Sexual Abuse, Ms. Jacqueline Lorice Pascal. Morning, Ms. Pascal.
Good morning, Blossom.
And happy to see you. Thank you so much. We worked out our technical issues and now we can get into it.
Okay, great.
Right. So the 16 days of activism, before Mrs. McQueen was giving us some information about what it entails and what it's about. But in terms of the activities that we would have, first let's deal with the theme for the 2020 commemoration and the activities that we would have during these COVIDious times.
Okay. So what we did a tweak from the UN Women theme, and we kind of customized it according to our Grenadian context. So the first 3 words of the theme from UN Women is Orange Your World. So we kept that. But what we added was invest in decreasing controlling behavior, reap its reward. And I'm glad Elaine came before us. So I just speak a little bit on that because she spoke about the prevalence survey that Grenada is fortunate to have. And so it makes what we're doing, our programmatic action, I'm using the word, say, maybe more deeper, and we could be able to drill down and really identify the problems that we have been talking about on administrative data for a long time, but now we have a prevalence data which tell us the frequency, and so we're able to form programs around that. And as she mentioned, the Spotlight Initiative came on board, and so we're going to use that investment in Grenada to work with the problems we are seeing. And she already mentioned the frequency of the 29%, 1 in 3 women in her lifetime would have experienced domestic violence. So that is why we have invest in decreasing controlling behavior, because there we found that some of the triggers, one of the triggers for domestic violence is around controlling behaviors. And we could deal about that a little bit more, because you asked me to do something first. So let me just set the stage for what we were doing. And so we already had our minister make an address to the nation, and person would have heard that. And that was on the day, the first day, the 25th of November, which starts the 16 days of activism. And I don't know if Elaine gave you the history, but we could come back to that as well. And I'm reminding people of the day and also asking them to wear something orange. Now, the next significant day that we had, and Elaine already spoke about it, and this was the 29th of November, which was yesterday, and she told you about the Inter-American Convention on the Punishment, Prevention, and Eradication of Violence Against Women, and of course, the Belém do Pará. And so we tried to bring awareness to that. However, we had a little glitch in that, but we're going to do that blast today. And I'm glad we are on here today to start off the conversation so the public would know that this is part of what we are doing to bring awareness around violence against women and girls. But in between that, though, I must say, although it's we did something on the 26th, and let me just go back to that quickly. We had a virtual training session for service providers. So that is already done. And the reports coming out from that, the feedback coming back from that, it was a very
Miss Pascal, you seem to be frozen just a little bit. Not a little bit. You seem to be frozen. Your video. Miss McQueen, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
First line of the fence, you're looking at the police, you're looking at nurses, you're looking at our gender-based violence responders in the ministry, our counselors. They are front line, and they have to listen to the story of those who are reporting first. So under the Spotlight Initiative, under Pillar 4, we inserted that in our 16 days itinerary, so that persons who work with victims of domestic violence, that they would have some kind of training, and also a program where they could have respite, so some kind of healing as well. So this is great going forward. So the next day we're going to look at what we did. We highlighted some days, it's 16 days, and there's something happening every 16 days. But for Grenadian context, we decide what is pertinent to us. And so the next day we're going to look at is the 1st of December, which is World AIDS Day. And we're going to do blasts on our social media platforms. We have a platform called I Rep Nonviolence from the Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Community Empowerment, and our Facebook page. And we're going to look at putting some information out there on healthy and unhealthy relationships. So we want persons to see both what is happening, because sometimes we're not really conscious that the relationship is toxic, as it were. And so we want to give some advice on how we can eradicate that and put in place healthy relationships. So we're going to do that. Of course, it's all on social media platform.
And we're frozen again, Miss Pascal. While the video takes its time to unfreeze.
The gatekeepers, who are the ones who can really help us in bringing these messages across. And so we are going to do a virtual training on Wednesday, December 2nd, with influencers, with business.
Okay, so while Miss Pascal returns, before she returns, let me go back to Miss McQueen. Miss McQueen, what assistance has been given to our women and girls who have been survivors of violence, whether it's sexual, emotional, mental, domestic, or otherwise? How has Grenadian authorities helped them cope, move forward, recover?
Grenada has been taking some remarkable action over the last few years. Actually, it's about closer to 20 years since the passage of the first Domestic Violence Act in Grenada. And then the second one came along to repeal and replace that first one, which was provided some further improvement. The actions that Grenada as a country has been taking has been around law reform, so that it would be recognized that victims and survivors have a space to enter the official systems to address the problems that they are facing. All right. So that is important because prior to the passage of the laws, the Domestic Violence Act, for example, it was not clear whether the intimate partner violence was against any law. The laws made it plain that it's a violation. And so those are important. The police has been responding, and in the last 3 or so years, the police has further strengthened by having a special victims unit being assigned, right? So that has improved the way the police is responding. The government offices, the Ministry of Social Development has been responding over the years, and then it's for quite a number of years, there was a domestic violence unit as part of the Division of Gender and Family Affairs, and that unit was broadened to be called the Gender-Based Violence Unit a few years, maybe about 8 to 10 years ago. And so there is a gender-based violence unit in the ministry that provides support, psychosocial support to victims. The support includes referrals to counseling, referrals to economic safety nets, recommendations in relation to housing and secure space for housing, not necessarily getting their own house, but at least if they need immediate shelter, then they can access it through the GBV unit. So the unit does quite a number of things. The hospital system also responds, the health services, hospital and health centers also respond by taking care of injuries and so on, and linking up victims with the GBV unit and other providers, the police and so when necessary, for the problems to be solved. Larger number of problems to be solved. The NGO movement has played a critical role and has been involved in advocacy for many, many years. And in fact, the advocacy by the NGO movement has led to some of those changes I've mentioned. And so the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, which is an entity of Green Coda, is right now and has been for a long time taking some decisive action to support survivors. And there is a program for survivors called Changes and one for the offenders called Batterers Intervention Program or Man-to-Man Program, which are both provided by Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. And they also provide legal support, legal advice to victims and survivors. We also see other organizations like the Grenada National Organization of Women, the GNCRC, and other local organizations having played a critical role in advocating for change and bringing the problem to the forefront so that the government and other actors can take note of it and do something about it. And those kinds of partnerships and roles are always important. And hopefully, the intention of Spotlight is to strengthen all of those.
Ms. Pascal, well, first let me inform our viewers and listeners, this is your chance to ask either of the ladies any questions you may have as it relates to of efforts to eradicate violence against women and girls. The landline number 435-2041. That's also the WhatsApp. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. You can also participate on the GBN, Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page and the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Before I get back to my question, then, let me take this caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning to the panel.
Morning.
My problem is, I don't know what Gino and those other groups doing. What? Grenada is the 10th country in the world for rape, right? Okay? We high up in rape. We're the 10th. And I don't know what they're doing about this guy in housing scheme who kills the girl, throw her to the precipice, over the precipice, because he's married for love. He's married to get his papers to go and bring his woman from India, right? And brings the one from India married and bring her down, and he in Grenada walking free. And I think he opened a little business or something in town, and his people working in it. And the family of these people is still hurting, and they're not doing anything about it. What those ladies group doing in Grenada? This man they should revoke his passport and send him back to India. Because if one of us Grenadians do something like that in any country, like America, Canada, and many other countries, they revoke your passport and they send you back. So let's see those groups do something about it. It's time, and they're only talking and they're not doing anything. It's time for they do something. It's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Ladies?
Is Miss Pascal able to take this one?
Okay, so I think he's speaking about a case that happened a long time ago. And in terms of that statistics, we go on the statistics that we have in Grenada. And of course, we're going to be refining and seeing where we are placed as far as the world ranking is concerned. In terms of any person who would have been convicted would have served their time. We know we have a limitation on, well, not a limitation, but don't forget sentencing carry years. So for example, in the amended Act for the Criminal Code, 2012, I think it is, Ms. McQueen, where their maximum for penalties like that is 15 and 30 years. So we need to look at these things, and I'm not sure that Grenada has that kind of ruling where persons is sent back to their country after spending time. So this is something we're going to look into. We're speaking from the NGO perspective, where we are very, I'm putting on my NGO hat now, where we are very conscious of what is happening, and we do voice. And we not only voice, but we make sure that there's substantive things happening in terms of legislation and policy, so that we're not standing idly by or quiet in any means. When we try to bring awareness to certain issues, sometimes we get shut down because it's not favorable. But we do the favorable and the unfavorable, and we make no apologies for it. So, Mrs. McQueen, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Thank you.
I would just add then that it is important for the entire society, everyone, not just the women's organizations and like the ones that the caller mentioned, to stand up and take notice and take action and advocate. And in fact, the caller, by bringing this to the attention, to our attention here, and of course the public, can be considered part of the advocacy, is part of the advocacy to do something to change the system. And so we encourage the average citizen in Grenada to speak up about issues that affect them. It might mean along the way further analysis of the reasons why things exist as they are now, but it can also mean at some point deciding what needs to change. And maybe the caller is signaling that something needs to change. And what he and others can do individually and collectively is to point out to the authorities what needs to be changed. As a matter of fact, the Spotlight Initiative program has one section called Legislative and Policy Reform. That's the first pillar. And there is already a legal advisor on board. And what I can commit to do is to bringing this particular question to the attention of the legal advisor to see if there is anything that can be changed. We cannot commit that anything will be changed, but what we can say is there is room to look at the entire body of laws and policies to see if something can be changed and make recommendation appropriately.
There's a WhatsApp question. Well, it looks like a comment. It says, it's hard to imagine so much has been done about the problem, but there is still a high per capita incidence of rape in the country. The problem is with nasty men. Castration should be the answer for rapists. Now, that has been a comment, not a comment, but comments by members of the public in relation to the punishment meted out to these perpetrators that many feel it's too, for lack of a better word, soft. It's not enough for the crime that they commit. How can the committee that you are part of, Ms. Pascal, as well as the Spotlight program, Ms. McQueen, how can these two initiatives champion for greater, bigger, harsher punishment for these perpetrators? Or does it need to come from the feedback from the public before you go ahead with that call, with that?
Well, for the Spotlight initiative is based on human rights and the human rights principles. And when we speak about human rights, we cannot separate the human rights of the victims totally from and say, okay, the victims have human rights, but the offenders don't. The offenders also have human rights. And therefore, any kind of punishment, any kind of sanction that is recommended will be taking into account the human rights of both the victim and survivor and also the offender, right? So to the extent of whether or not castration is recommended would be about examining whether it is in keeping with the overall global human rights standards for sanctions and punishments for any kind of crime. What I would encourage our citizens in Grenada to look at, and all the organizations and individuals, is to also look at how the prevention, how much emphasis can be given to prevention. What is it in the Grenadian society that would allow an individual to believe that it is okay to rape somebody? And prevention is always better than cure, not just in medicine, but also in social ills. How can we prevent potential offenders from getting to the point of becoming offenders? How can we teach our women and men, our boys and girls? How can the society tell our men and women, boys and girls, that it is not okay, it is not tolerated to sexually violate anybody? And if we prevent, then we don't even have to get to the point of thinking about punishment so much. Punishments are there as a deterrent, but it cannot be the only deterrent. It's also about what the society does and how the society engages each other, how men and women engage each other, what we pass on to the children, how we think, what do we believe? Do we believe that a woman's body is an object? Do we believe that a woman's body is part of her being as a human being, and it's up to her to make the decision? Or do we believe that she doesn't have a say in what happens to her body and she should not have a say? So it is about the society thinking about it and looking at prevention. And that's the recommendation I would give. And also noting, as I said before, we have to balance the human rights of the victim as well as the offender.
If I may weigh in here, thanks, Mr. McQueen, because the pillar that under the Spotlight Initiative, which I lead, is a pillar 3, and it's called prevention of social norms. So, as Ms. McQueen saying, I stand on that pulpit. I'm preaching prevention because we can prevent it. And so, one of the things the many things that we're going to do under that pillar during the course of the coming year, 2021 to 2022, is to do activities around how to prevent. Now, we have already started it in this year, 2020, where we're looking at inviting members of the community. In addition to doing the influencers and so on, we already started the conversation. And we have already seen small change. We've already seen a change already as well in last week. No, this week actually, we already seen a change. We already seen young people, young men coming forward and owning up and admitting that there is a problem. I have a problem and I want to change. I think this is where the conversation needs to go. Not castration. What can we do? What can I do? I've seen, based on a program we had, we were able to identify, that person was able to identify, but wait, hold on, I've got a problem. And honest enough to make the declaration that I want to fix it. And so this is the method we were going to be going forward in the year to come, that we're going to go into the communities and have this conversation with everybody. And how am I going to fix it? As Elaine said, legislation is one thing. We have that there for protection. But do we really want to go there? Because there are a lot of social ills and social norms we need to correct. And as we have said many times, they are the triggers of our violence in this country. And so all of us need to be stand up and to be counted.
Let me go back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning, Blossom, and good morning to your guest.
Morning.
Yes, I must say that this is a very, very relevant and very great discussion that is taking place on this topic that has been plaguing not just Grenada, not just our nation, but the world as a whole. And whenever there is a problem, it is very important to get to the root of the problem. What is the root of the problem? What is really the root of the problem? Now, I think it is well known that I am a Christian. I'm a born-again believer of Jesus Christ. And I believe that man is a holistic being. You have the physical, you have the spiritual. And most of the times when we have these types of issues, we neglect to really see that this problem is not just physical, but it's spiritual in nature. And how do we deal with matters like that? Is the church. Sometimes I think I'm part of the Church of Jesus Christ, and sometimes I think the church is hidden in the background, whereas I think the church should play an integral part in this discussion that is taking place. So the church should be able to give their perspective on the situation. Now, I listened to the caller that called, that gentleman that called, and this is not the first time I hear him call, and he speaks with such passion in his heart concerning this individual he spoke about. I don't know the whole history about that, but I could remember the incident when it happened. And I did not hear neither Mrs. McQueen nor Ms. Pascal say, okay, well, what we're going to do, we're going to carry out an investigation to find out if this thing is true, what the man is saying. Is it true? Is it true that this man committed a crime and now he's allowed to just operate like nothing happened? Is it true? So I think this is the first place to start, to find out, in other words, to validate what the man is saying and then take appropriate action. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies? Ms. Pascal, I think you did acknowledge it. When you started, you said you remember that case from a long time ago, yes?
Yes, and if he would have served his time. So what the last caller said, she made some sense. So it's something that we could look into, as Elaine did mention, that there's on board now a legal advisor. So we could really do that, because we don't want people to go away thinking that, this is a don't care society and think people just walking around and having committed crime and they're free and all, etc. But we must remember that there's a course of law. and people do, once they serve the time, they do get free. We know that. So what we need to do, as Elaine already said, that we will look at it and see what can happen there. Because if there could be changes, yes, but if not, well, we have to, that's one of the things we live with. Now, the caller who spoke about the church is in the background, I don't think so. The church is foregrounded in our conversation because I've already mentioned that we are going to look at faith-based organization and how they can, their influences as well, and how they can help us spread the word. Of course, we're looking for fairness in society. We're looking for equality in our society. And we're looking for persons to, to be honest about their dealings. And one of the things that we tend to hide, and one of the things that I want to use the word toxic, sometimes we allow things to happen. We are party, we aid and abet things, we encourage things. And even though there are criminal actions against our children in particular, we allow these things to happen. So this is where we need to examine, when we speak publicly, what are we doing? Am I among those, or am I willing to come forward? After this conversation we have here this morning, we want person to come and talk to us, want to be part of our activity, because we must, as the caller rightly said, there are roots to this thing, deep, hidden social roots, which we must unearth, which we must air, and which we must deal with. We cannot deal with it if we're not willing to bring it to the surface so we could see what they are, and then we could really work on them to have this problem solved in our country.
Could I add that the question posed by that last caller started with what's the root of the problem. And it is very instructive that she said that. It is remarkable that she asked that question. The theories have taught us that the root of the problem of intimate partner violence, the root of the problem of violence against women and girls, the root lies in power. Power imbalance between males and females, that men and boys have been taught traditionally that they can exercise power over women and girls, their bodies, their mind, their entire being almost, or maybe actually so. The women and girls have been taught that they should submit, that they should give in to men and boys, don't ruffle the feathers of men and boys, do what men and boys expect of them. And that is the core of it. That is gender inequality. That is what is the societies, not just in Grenada, but globally, have been based on for centuries. And over the last few centuries, decades especially, action has been taken to correct that power imbalance and to create what is called gender equality. And we are not yet there at that point of gender equality. But in Grenada, what's the evidence of that? The Women's Health and Life Experience study, which I mentioned earlier, points out that in intimate partner relationships, where the partner is experiencing controlling behavior, the incidence, the likelihood of being a victim of physical violence or any form of intimate partner violence grows, it increases, sometimes up to 50 and 60%. If a partner, usually if the male partner does not want the female person in the relationship, partner in the relationship, to talk on the phone without him knowing who is on the other side of the call. If the male partner does not want the female partner to go out without permission, if the male partner is controlling the female partner in any number of ways, then the likelihood that that female partner is beaten or experiencing emotional and other forms of intimate partner violence is extremely high in comparison to those relationships where they don't have those kinds of controlling behaviors taking place. So power and control is at the core of it, and the study in Grenada showed that. And so the prevention is around ending these controlling behaviors, ending this power and control over that the society has taught us, and we're changing. We've made a lot of strides. Grenada has made a lot of progress, but it is still there deep down in the psyche of the society. And we need to do more to change that so that victims and offenders, people in the public, we will all learn that we need to treat each other as equals without having power and control over the other, but as equals, because we are equal in worth and in value. We have equal human rights. Male and females are equal.
Thank you, ladies, so much for being our guests this morning. Appreciate it. Continue doing the work that you both are doing. Ms. Pascal, when is the next major event for the 16 days of activism? The
last major event is on the 10th, which is the last day.
The next one.
Well, the next one is, that's it.
Okay.
That's it, because we already reached the 4th and Orange the World. Don't forget, on Friday the 4th, we're asking persons to wear something orange again. You can do whatever you like, wear red ribbon, paint your nails, whatever. So we're asking persons that on December the 4th, which is Friday.
Okay.
Friday coming. And of course, the next one activity will be December the 10th, the last day. It's International Human Rights Day. And we want to, again, do our social media platform blast on that day and what that signifies. And we thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity. And of course, you can contact us at the ministry if you want additional information of what we're doing, in particular around our activities for the final part of this year and, of course, in the beginning of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have yourselves a good day today, a productive Monday, and God bless.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
My guests this morning, Lorice Pascal, the coordinator. Let me make sure I have them correct. Yes, Ms. Pascal, the coordinator of the Committee to End Child Sexual Abuse, and Mrs. McQueen, the project coordinator of the Spotlight Initiative. We thank them both, and thank you, our viewers and listeners, for tuning in. Janelle and Joseph are up next with the Christmas Caravan. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, God willing. Have yourselves a safe, productive, marvelous Monday.